Indeed. So hello and welcome to everyone this evening. If you've never been to a webinar before, it's slightly different from a regular Zoom call. You can see us, we can't see you. You'll be muted throughout the session. If you've got any questions, you can either put something in the chat, as a couple of you have already, or you can use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screen. So not to raise a hand unless you can't hear or something like that, but we're just, if you pop your questions in the chat or Q&A, then we're going to answer those at the end after both Christine and Daniel have spoken. So tonight's the second in our Generous Giving Autumn webinar series. And if you didn't see the first one, you can catch up on the YouTube or via the website. We were looking last time at communicating the need, giving you some practical tips. And tonight, Christine and Daniel are going to carry on with communicating the need, speaking on inspiration and vision and social media, digital fundraising, communicating in a modern world. So just before we start, why don't we take a moment to pray? Lord, we thank you that we have good news to tell. We've got great things to communicate about you and your church. Now give us understanding this evening so that we can make the best of all the tools we have at our disposal to bring glory to your name. And we pray that you'll help Christine and Daniel to speak with confidence and clarity and enable us to put into practice what they bring tonight. Amen. It's over to Daniel and Christine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny. And I'll just add my welcome to you all. I'm going to just share my screen for you. A moment. Okay, can you see that, Jenny and Daniel? Yeah, is that okay? So hopefully the rest of you can too. Okay, so today we're thinking about communicating the needs in a modern world. As Jenny said, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about communicating the need in general. We looked at making posters, writing letters, making leaflets, and communicating through preaching the word of God as well. So if you haven't seen that, do catch up with that on Zoom. But today we're looking more at how to communicate in a modern world using modern technology in our communication. But before we go on to the technology side of it, I'll try to move my slide on. It never works. There we go. This might be a little recap if you were here at the last webinar, but if not, just first of all, let's just think about what is the financial need in the church, but what should we communicate in order to inspire people to give? So the financial need on the left-hand side there might be things like upkeep of the church, repairs to the building, MMF contributions, staff costs, development of the building. And I'm sure you can think of many more things that need money in order to just keep the church running. But those sort of things may inspire people to give, but for most people, they probably won't inspire people to give. If you just say, we need to pay our MMF, we need to repair our church, they're not going to necessarily inspire people to give. So when you're thinking about communicating the need, the sort of things you want to communicate are things like your vision. What is your vision for your church? What's the mission? What do you want to do in your church? How do you want to serve God and serve your community? What are the kind of activities that go on in your church? What community links do you have? Do you have groups that use the church and wouldn't be able to do that if there was no money to keep the church running? Tell stories, show pictures of real people. When you're communicating, whether it's online in the modern world or whether it's on paper, show those pictures, tell the stories of real people. People give to people. They like to see how you're impacting real people. Maybe you've got some sort of social action project in your church. There's a few logos here of the food bank, memory cafes, Christians Against Poverty. Those kinds of social action projects, again, really inspire people to get on board and to contribute. But also many people, both in the church and in the wider community, just value the church for the beauty, for the peace. So emphasize that in your communication, not just saying, please give us money, we need to repair the roof, but please give us money so that we can preserve this beautiful building, so that we can enhance our beautiful churchyard, and just use those sorts of words and those sorts of stories to encourage people to give. So I mentioned there about vision and mission. There's this wonderful verse from Habakkuk says, write the vision and make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. So your vision must be clear. If you don't already have a vision for your church, it might be time to think about putting that vision into words and making that the focus of all your ministry, all your missions, so that people know what the church is doing, where it's working, what it's trying to achieve. And so that anyone who hears that vision, they may run if they read it, they may go with that, get on board with that, and be inspired to be a part of that, and whether it's contributing financially or whether it's doing something else. And then moving on to that, as I was saying before, what do you do as a church? What impact do you have on your community and on your people? And explain to people, tell those stories, explain to them what your mission is. Perhaps you're involved in wider mission, maybe overseas mission. Tell all of those stories, make sure people are aware of what you're doing and why the church needs their support. Think about your audience as well. You might be communicating with people of different ages, different backgrounds, people who are regular worshippers, people who are not regular worshippers, but members of the community and value the church. So think about who you're communicating with and tailor your communication according to the background of those people you're talking to. And finally, think about what motivates people to give. We've talked about these stories, but some people are motivated by different things. There are those who are motivated by seeing the budget and seeing the gaps in the budget. There are those who are motivated by these stories, this vision that we've been talking about. Others are motivated perhaps by the biblical context, seeing what the Bible says about giving, what the Bible says about the mission of the church. So think about those different motivations and try and include maybe a little bit of all of those when you're communicating with people. So moving on now to communicating in a modern world. So as I said, we're kind of looking at modern technology and how we might use that in our communications and encouraging people to give. So I'm going to have a look at how you might use your website or a church near you page. Now you might think, well, we don't have a website in our church, and many churches don't, but perhaps that's something you could think about for the future. Think about developing a website that's specific to your church. But if you don't have one, every church does have a church near you page, and I'm sure you're all aware of your a church near you pages. And so those can be used in a similar way to the way you might use your website. You could put information on there which encourages people and tells your story and inspires people to get involved with your church in all sorts of different ways, whether it's giving or whether it's getting involved by giving their time and giving their talents. So on those pages, you can, for giving, you can include links. Perhaps you've signed up to online giving, where people can give online by clicking buttons. Perhaps you haven't done that yet, but again, that might be something to think about in the future. And we'll have a webinar on that actually in November. That's something you want to think about. But if you have done that, you can include links on your website and on a church near you where people can click, and QR codes that they can scan. You can explain options for the parish giving scheme or standing orders, whichever method you use in your church. Again, have somewhere people can click so that they can do that easily. But don't just have those things. There's no point signing up to online giving and having a button on your website and just waiting for people to give to it. The communication is key. So telling those stories, having that communication alongside those buttons and those ways of giving is really important, rather than just expecting people to know what you're talking about. Using videos is really useful. The little logo at the bottom there is from a video that some of you may have seen that the National Giving Team has produced. Really lovely video about generosity and how to communicate the need and the impact. Just a very short video which can inspire people in their generosity. those can be used, and we can help supply those for you. Or you might think about developing your own little video, maybe just someone from your church just telling those stories and talking about what people might give to in your church. So I'm going to show you, oh, it's not moving again. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. I can't make my slide move on. There we go. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of websites. This is a website from St. Key Church. Now I know St. Key is a really big church, and so they've been able to put a lot of time, and they've got lots of people who can help with their website, but there's no reason why you can't do something similar to this on your website, possibly on a slightly smaller scale. So if we scroll down, this is the giving part of the website. The website has lots of different pages on it, but this is the particular page on giving. So elsewhere on the website, there's all sorts of things about their vision and their mission, but now we're looking at giving. It starts with, everything we do is funded by you. And I'll just read these few paragraphs. It says, regular giving by the church family helps us to meet the costs of our many outreach and discipleship activities, including funding our staff team, clergy, meeting spaces, online ministry, youth and children's ministry, work with Christians Against Poverty, and gospel partnership initiatives locally and internationally. We would love you to become a partner in this work by contributing financially if you can afford to do so. So straight away, we see there the sort of activities that they're doing, why the impact that they're having, and why it's important to support that. And then the final paragraph there says, if you could commit to regular giving, it would really help us to budget the day-to-day running of our church and for our growth plans as we seek to live out our vision to see God transform lives in Truro and beyond. So they've stated their vision there, to see God transform lives in Truro and beyond. So the vision is clear. They also have a little video. I'm not going to show you that, but it's a lovely little video, just their treasurer talking about giving at Key. And so then after that, you've heard the vision, you've heard the impact of the giving, just ways of giving. The parish giving scheme, first of all, for this church, it's their preferred way of giving. And so it clearly talks about the parish giving scheme, and there's a button to click if you want to sign up to give online there. And moving on, one-off gifts. Again, it shows you how you can give a one-off gift if you don't want to sign up to regular giving, and who to contact. It's very important to have the contact there so people know, see clearly how to do that. And just scrolling down to this last bit, well, not quite the last bit actually, but this bit about leaving a legacy, which is, sorry, I've lost my arrow. Leaving a legacy, which is, again, it's a wonderful little explanation about legacies. At St. Key, we welcome all gifts and wills, however large or small. Again, it states the vision now. We have a vision to see God transform lives here in Truro and beyond. And the PCC's legacy policy is to use gifts to fund growth initiatives, whether by investing in people, equipment, mission, or buildings. And they talk about all legacies being a part of Christian stewardship and a way of giving thanks to God. And again, it goes on to talk about all the impact of giving in the church. So it's really nice communication, which will hopefully really inspire people to get on board. And at the very end there, you can be confident that your gift will be used to make a real difference to the lives of others through our work at St. Key. And then this is the very end of their giving page. Why give? God has shown his great love for us and giving us so much supremely in his Son. Having received such undeserved generosity, it's our joyful response to give our lives to serving him. Giving is not limited to our finances. God wants to be generous with our time, energy, and skills, property, and homes. If we have received God's abundant grace, then we all have something to give generously. And it talks about how the Bible says we should give abundantly, thoughtfully, and prayerfully, and joyfully. So there we're looking at those different motivations. This is the biblical context for giving, which is put really clearly and helpfully at the end there. So that's the St. Key website. Very briefly, this is another website, Holy Trinity St. Austell. And I really love just the first paragraph of this, that we believe that giving is part of our worship. It shouldn't be something we do out of a sense of duty or obligation. Generosity is a natural response when we encounter the generosity that God has lavished on us. And it's a generosity of many that enables our parish church to advance, grow and develop. So again, it's just putting things in context and showing the impact of people's giving. On this website, they've used this section to talk about a project that they have. You can do that as well. They're trying to raise money for a particular project. Again, they've included a video which shows the impact that this project will have on the local community and how it will reach out to the community, which is what they're trying to do, and how it's meeting their vision. But again, as you go down, there's very clear buttons to where you can donate. It gives the background, it gives the context, it tells you about the vision. And then there's different ways to give, whether you want to give a one-off gift, whether you want to give through the parish giving scheme. So it's really helpful. The contacts are all there. So it's really clear communication expressing the impact. And then at the very end, it says, if you can't give at the moment, there are other ways you can get involved as well. So it's to give in other ways through praying, serving, or inviting. Okay, so that's websites. So as I say, that's the sort of thing you could do on your own website, making sure that as well as giving those options for giving, that you're expressing the vision and the mission and showing the impact of what you're doing. I've got an example now of a church near you site. This is for St. Luke's in Boscopper. This is the front page of their A Church Near You page, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And you've got that first paragraph. If I put my arrow over it here, I can't scroll on this one. This one's just a picture. So I'm just showing you a little bit of this one. But again, they've written very clearly here, you can read it, that their mission and their vision, which is all very clear. There's then the safeguarding bit that has to be there. But it's very clear what the vision and mission of the church is. And then underneath that, you've got the donate here button. Now that donate button can be linked to online giving, such as Give a Little, which some of you may be aware of. If you'd like to have that button activated and sign up for online giving, just get in touch and we can help you with that. But so setting out the vision and the mission and then giving people the opportunity to donate as a response to that once they're inspired and encouraged by that. Also, you'll see at the bottom right there a little thing saying news, and on this page, if I could scroll down, you would see the news of the church, the different activities that are going on, the outreach that's happening, again, to encourage and inspire people. Then on the left-hand side there, you could put a link perhaps to the parish giving scheme or a contact for somebody to get in touch with if you wanted to give. They have got a donate here button there. I think that just goes to their one-off donations. But if you wanted to, you could include the parish giving scheme there as well. And I just wanted to mention that you may or may not know that the parish giving scheme, some of you use it. We would encourage you to use it if you don't already, but you can give to that online now. There's no need anymore to fill in the paper forms, although you can if you want to, but you can do it all online. So for people who want to use this modern technology, you can sign up for your gifts on the parish giving scheme. And this A Church Near You page is linked to the parish giving scheme website. So if I go on now to St. Luke's Boscopper, their little page on the parish giving scheme website, what they wrote on their A Church Near You page about their mission and their vision has been transferred directly onto the parish giving scheme page as well. So if people are looking there and wanting to give a gift, they'll see that there. And hopefully that will encourage and inspire them to give, or perhaps to give more than they were initially thinking. If they see this wonderful vision and the work that the church is doing, they might think, oh, actually, I want to give more. I want to thank God for the work that this church is doing. So it's good to get your text on A Church Near You right, so that it appears there on the parish giving scheme page as well. Then people can simply click on this button here where it says Give Now to set up their direct debit with the parish giving scheme. So I think that's all I've got there. But yeah, just to reiterate that communication is vitally important. Communicating your vision, communicating your mission, communicating your impact. and communicating the need of the church. But if all those things are in place, that will hopefully encourage people and inspire people rather than just waiting for people to give without showing them what they're giving for. But also saying thank you to people is really important. And you can do that on your website as well. Say a thank you to those people who are faithfully giving to the church already. And it's really important to do that. We said in the previous webinar, it's important to send out regular letters as well to thank people for what they're doing and what they're giving to the church. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing there and pass over to Daniel.
Thank you so much for that, Christine. That was a really, really rich presentation, and hopefully in many ways leads on to mine, which is about specifically focusing on social media and sharing our giving messages on social media. So I'm also going to share my screen, and I just want to check with Jenny and Christine that we can see that all good. That's coming up.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So starting off, what is social media and why is it relevant? Well, many of you may be familiar with social media, you might not, but it's worth beginning this presentation to stop and think about what exactly social media is and why your church, more generally, but also specifically thinking about generosity, might want to have a social media presence. Social media is any digital tool that allows users to create and share content with their friends and/or the wider public. That sounds kind of fancy, but essentially all it means is websites and apps which allow users or churches or companies to share pictures and texts and links and updates with other people that are using the website. If you're using it in a personal capacity, that might be your friends and people you know. If you're using it in the capacity of a church, that might be your congregation, but it also might be wider users of the social media platform. You might be trying to do a little bit of outreach through social media. Some, like Twitter, specialize in sharing links and short written messages. Others, like Instagram and TikTok, are built and are optimized for the sharing of photos and videos. The key is that these are interactive platforms focused on communication, content sharing, and collaboration between people. And don't worry too much if any of those website names didn't immediately sound recognizable. In the next part of this presentation, I'll be talking a little bit about some specific social media platforms. So that's what social media is, which I guess leads us on to the next question. Why would we consider using social media in a church or generosity context? Well, the United Kingdom was home to 53 million active social media users as of January 2021. That's a huge and staggering number and translates to a social media usage rate of 77.9% of the UK population. That means that nearly 80% of the UK population are using social media in one form or another. And we can imagine that that's to stay in touch with friends, to network with their community groups, and all sorts of other uses. I think that particularly as a result of lockdowns and people being physically distanced from each other, social media has become a key tool and enabler by which people and groups can communicate with each other. With people spending so much time on social media, it's more important than ever for churches to have a strong social presence. It's not about conforming to the ways of the world, but it's about being diverse in the ways that we reach out to people. Jesus came and lived amongst communities where they were, and it just so happens that lots of communities are now operating online. If God has given you a vision that can impact your local community and build his kingdom, it is good for you, it's good for us to share it with as many people in as many ways as is possible. Social media, by its very nature, is designed to take a message and spread it amongst a wide group of people. And even though this particular talk is about generosity, I think there's lots of other good reasons why you might like to consider having a social media presence for your church or community group. Many new people looking for a church will often check out a church's social media pages before planning an in-person visit or watching an online service. If they understand what they see and you communicate your vision well, and there's a vision alignment, then they'll be much more inclined to attend an actual worshiping experience. In the midst of various lockdowns and things like that, if you've been struggling to keep people engaged throughout the week, social media can also keep the current congregation feeling connected and excited about upcoming events or services. It's a way of making church a midweek and not just a Sunday-only community. There's a really good quote there at the end from Reverend Pam Smith. She recently wrote a book on online ministry, and this is what she said. Jesus often encountered people individually. Social media gives us the same personal access to people. This is an every member ministry, and it's exciting and inspiring. So that's what social media is, and why you might want to use it. And I guess the next question, the next part of this is thinking about which social media platforms you might want to use. There's a huge range of social media websites and apps out there, and it's always good to have a multi-platform presence, meaning being available on lots of different apps. However, if you're just starting out or you have limited resources to think about a social media strategy, then thinking about one or two of them is a really good idea. And I would suggest that you focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in that order. So to talk a little bit about each one of these, Facebook is the most well-known and used social media platform. It's highly likely that Facebook will be the first place that people will look up your church. For many people, because it's one of the bigger platforms and it's been around for nearly 15, 20 years now, it's familiar, it feels safe. They know what they're looking for, and so they feel confident in looking for your church and engaging with content in that way. In the context of your church community, you can set something up called a Facebook page, which is essentially a group or community profile from where you can post text, images, videos, and links. Pages are completely free to set up and definitely the first starting point. You can also link your Facebook page and any of these social media pages to your A Church Near You page, which is one of the things that Christine was showing us earlier. So you can have your A Church Near You as a sort of central hub from where you link out to all these different platforms. Here we have an example of a Facebook page from the Penlee cluster down south. As you can see, they've got a photo, a cover photo, and they're using this particular post here to share a video of their worship service. On the left, we get some details like the phone number, the address, and also some vision ideas and statements, or there's an opportunity to put those there. The number might be a little bit small here, but it says 897 people are engaging with the cluster through Facebook. The next social media platform is Twitter. Twitter allows you to share texts, videos, and pictures, but there's a big emphasis on short form content. So for example, text tweets are limited to 280 characters and videos are limited to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The emphasis here is getting your message out there in as succinct a way as possible, which is not always a bad thing. Twitter forces us to think carefully about what we are saying and how we can share this in the simplest way possible. There's also a big emphasis on Twitter on something called retweeting, which essentially means that other people share your messages on their own platform. This is a great way to get your church community involved as they can retweet your church message to their own networks. So again, we have an example here of a Twitter page for New Street Church in Falmouth. And you can see that similar to Facebook, there's, a profile photo, a cover photo. And in this tweet here, in a few short sentences, they've described what's going to be happening at a Sunday service, and they're inviting people along. So really not a lot of text, but they've managed to pack in there exactly what's happening and have an open invite for people. There's also a nice photo that accompanies the post there on Twitter. Finally, there's Instagram, which is for video and photos only. This is a great way of being visual storytellers and sharing exactly who we are with our church community. It's almost, like a visual window into who we are. Whereas in the past, if someone wanted to check out a church, they might have, gone around and visited and peered through the windows to see what was going on inside. Now they can do that digitally. They can have a look on Instagram, and you can share with people who you are, quite literally, picture and video form. Instagram is also a great way of engaging the missing generations and younger people. 90% of Instagram users are under 35 years old, and surveys amongst those user groups say that they consider it to be the most important social media. So here again, we have a example of a Cornish church that is using Instagram to keep connected and reach new people. You can see some really stunning photos here of activities that have happened at the church to do with flower cutting, a little bird that was seen on the church roof. And you can also see here, it might be a little bit too small to see, but it says Linktree. What that button there does is then opens a little list of links from where you can direct to the Facebook page, you can direct to the website, you can direct to the PGS donation page. You can use that link tree to point elsewhere from the Instagram. So I hope that was helpful and a very quick introduction to some social media platforms. It may well be that you're familiar with all of those already and are avid web surfers, which is fantastic, even if maybe in your own capacity as well as church capacity. But focusing more deeply again now on generosity, now that we know the social medias, what type of content might we share? The good thing here is that the key principles of our giving message are essentially the same as our wider messaging on generosity. We've touched upon this on earlier workshops. Jenny and Christine spoke about this at the earlier workshop on communicating the need, and Christine very helpfully gave us a little bit more today about communicating the need and how we frame need positively in terms of vision and mission. So I won't go into great depth here, but I will reiterate 2 points from the MINT acronym, which some of you might be familiar with. So mechanisms, impact, need, and trust. A good giving communication strategy shares the impact that people's giving will have. That is, what is happening as a result of the money that people give and how that giving is enabling the work of the church. A good giving strategy also shares the need for generosity. If we are to encourage people to give, then as churches, we must explain why we need people's support and how vital it is to our ministry and vision, as Christine was telling us earlier. So I hope to make these ideas concrete through a few examples of type of posts you might share. And these are calls to action, project-specific fundraising, fundraising events and giving campaigns, and reflections and short stories. So, direct calls to action. In specific terms, you might like to share direct calls to giving on your social media pages. That is, posts that specifically talk about the need and impact of giving and invite your social media community to give to the life of the church. Here we have an example from Truro Cathedral, where, as you can see, they have set out the need for donations in the context of the life and work of the church and what it is they do. But they've also talked about the need, specifically mentioning that it has been a tough time financially because of COVID-19. The post is also accompanied by a striking visual image, which really helps to bring to life what it is people are donating to. It's a grand, picture of the roof, and I guess invokes ideas of, it probably does require upkeep, but actually it's a positive space. There are people in there using it to worship. You can see 2 people sat there and a person in front, and it's light and airy. This is a good example of visual and written storytelling on social media. Next, you might like to think about project-specific fundraising. If, for instance, you are trying to raise money for a particular undertaking. Again, here we have 2 examples from churches on social media that are using the platforms to fundraise for their respective projects. So on the left, we have Kenwyn and St. Allen. And as you can see there, they are raising money for the refurbishment of their church bells. And on the right, we have All Saints Church, Highertown, that are fundraising for their Truro Lifehouse project. And in both those examples, what they've done is they've shared photos of what it is that people would be donating to, whether that's the new community building or the upkeep of church bells. And really importantly, they've also included mechanisms of giving. They made it incredibly easy for people to give. On the Kenwin post here, we can see a link to a Give a Little page, which is a donation platform. And likewise, on the All Saints one, they've got a Just Giving link, but they've also got text giving. So people can text #10 to 70070 to donate £10. Again, what's really nice about this post as well is that it says, please share and like, please donate and bless. So they're asking their community, they're asking people that see this to engage with them socially and share it with their own networks. These type of messages are particularly shareable, I would say, as there's a specific goal to be attained. And so it's very easy to be specific about the impact of people's donations. We can see what it's going towards, and also creates excitement in the community if there's a target and you can sort of see the bar creeping up. Another, I think, overlooked potential for social media in fundraising and thinking about generosity is for advertising the events that your church might be putting on, such as fetes, concerts, or similar. By posting the details on social media, people can share these around their friendship network and drive interest to your event. So here again, we have two examples from Cornish churches. One is in Tralee, that's in Redruth, and one I believe was a garden fete in Port Isaac. Both have chosen to take photos of physical posters and upload them. So there's a visual element available on social media, and they've got, you know, the sort of details that we would expect to accompany those. Another way that you can use an event type function on social media, which I don't have a screenshot of here, is you can actually create something called a Facebook event. And then from there, people can invite their friends. So they can say, I'd like to invite all these people. And then those people will get notification on their phone to say, Christine has invited you to come along to XYZ. And then they can either press yes, interested, or can't make it. So again, it's a really good way to mobilize your church community to be thinking wider about who else might they invite, who might like to come along to this. And it's certainly a lot less labor intensive than dropping around leaflets and things like that, because we're all empowered to do it, you know, from a few clicks from our phones. Finally, you might also consider using social media to share reflections on generosity or stories related to generosity. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning of this talk is that social media can be a really useful midweek discipleship tool and for staying in touch with your church community. So why not use social media more generally to share reflections and discipleship ideas, and in the midst of that, talk about generosity? Here we have an example on the left from the Diocese of York, and this is what they've written. Today's hashtag Monday Musings from hashtag Generous Churches in the Diocese of York. God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything, you may share abundantly in every good work. What is God calling you to today? And then we've got a little graphic there with a Bible verse. What's really good about that particular tweet, so that's a tweet there, is they're using hashtags. So they're making it easy for people to engage with that if they were searching for the hashtag generous churches. And they're also asking a question. They're engaging their community. They're saying, what is God calling you to today? They're asking people to respond and engage and, you know, I guess take that social media post and make it concrete in their life, you know, take it off the screen and have some practical action as a result of that. On the right, we have a Twitter thread from a member of clergy that was, I think it was, 2019, that went a little bit viral on Twitter. And viral is sort of when something becomes popular. And it was just her sharing a really powerful story about generosity and a Christmas gift. And again, you know, storytelling, making it real in the context of people and what generosity achieves can really help us create that culture of generosity that we often talk about. So what else should I consider? Well, this has been a very brief overview of the type of posts that you might like to put on social media, but it is in no way exhaustive. I'd be more than happy to chat with people, and as with Christine and Jenny, on context-specific advice and help with the practicalities of setting up a social media page if that's not something you've done before. Before I conclude, there's a few other considerations which I think are important to keep in mind when it comes to generosity and social media. The first one, and we kind of hinted at it as we were looking through all of these, is to ensure that the mechanisms of giving underlie everything we do on social media relating to generosity. That is, that there is a direct and easy lead on from your message to donating to those who would like to follow through in that way. So, for example, the post from the cathedral made specific reference to the donation points in the building, and the posts from All Saints Hiretown and Kenwyn included direct links to a giving page. Including these links means that people are empowered to donate and can easily follow through on your call to action. If we don't include the mechanisms of giving, we might really inspire people to give. They might think, yes, I want to respond in generosity, but then end up frustrated because they can't figure out how to actually do it. If we envelope that all together with the mechanisms, impact, need, and trust all in one, then we're on to a sure winner. Second piece of general advice is to use photos and videos as much as possible. These grab people's attentions more than just text and help bring to life what people are trying to say, especially photos of people. I often find it really powerful that when Jesus wanted to reveal himself to us, when God wanted to make himself known, he did that in the form of a person. He came down so that we could see him and physically engage with him in that way. And there's something so special about seeing photos of other people because it makes human to us what it is we're talking about. It's not just disembodied churches, but actually it's real and living church communities full of people doing great work. I think this is a good thing to consider with church messaging more generally. The more photos we include, the better. Thirdly is tailor the message to the platform you're using. So as we discussed at the beginning, different social media platforms have different uses and audiences. So it's worth keeping this in mind. Targeting your message carefully will increase its reach and impact and won't leave you frustrated if you're having to cut down a 7-page article into 280 words, 280 characters for Twitter, rather, if from the outset you don't write the 7 pages because you know you're going to be constricted to 280 characters. This leads me on to the next point, which is to make your online materials shareable and interactive posts. You can do this by directly asking people to share the posts. So include, in the post, please share this post, or asking questions so that people can reply. This allows people to retweet and share things with their own networks and activates your community to fundraise on your behalf. One of the best ways that social media is a blessing is that it's not just who we can reach as individuals, but it's who our community can reach and their wider networks. And I think you'd be surprised how many connections can be made online, even from what seems like a small group of people. Finally, you can also use social media to say thank you to people for their donations and giving, and celebrate the successes of fundraising initiatives. This helps build trust with your community and shows that we are grateful for their generosity, but also that we're stewarding it well. But as I said, this was very much an introduction to these ideas, and I know that we would all absolutely love to come alongside you when considering using social media, particularly in the context of generosity. And if we don't know the answer, which might be the case, I'm still new to some of these social media platforms. TikTok is a new one these days, and I've got no idea what's going on there. No doubt we can come together and figure it out as a team. And that's me. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Daniel. It was absolutely great from you and Christine. There's so much information in there, wasn't there? Like a lot to take in. And I think that's the important thing about coming back to us individually. We'll work individually with your church to see what you in particular need to make it specific to you. So we can't do that it's an overview today to get you excited and inspired and give you some ideas. There are a couple of questions in the chat and the Q&A, and a couple on PGS and a church near you, but I think that would be interesting for everyone to hear the answer to those, because they're often very asked questions. But Daniel, got one for you here to start with. How do you set up text giving?
Yeah, that's a good question. Historically, everyone used to use Vodafone. Vodafone had a really good service that they used to offer charities to do with text giving. I have a feeling they've stopped doing that, but I know that there definitely is other ways of activating text giving. So let me take that away with me and get back to you with a fuller answer, because I know that it used to be Vodafone, but they've something happened there.
So that's great. So we will get back to you. I've got your name there, so we can actually get in touch with you afterwards to let you know that. I think it's important to know how to do that. And there are a couple of PGS and a church near you questions, so it would be important for everyone to hear the questions as well. So we were asked, a church near you text automatically populates the PGS, your PGS site. Is that right, Christine?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's important to get that text right on a church near you, and you don't have to do anything with PGS. If you've got it there on a church near you, that automatically transfers onto the PGS page. There's that safeguarding bit that everyone has on a church near you, and for a lot of churches at the moment on PGS, it's only the safeguarding that comes up because they haven't written anything else yet on a church near you. So if you write a nice paragraph there with your vision and your mission and what you want to say about your church, that will come up automatically on the PGS page.
Yeah, so there was another question saying, how do we get our vision onto the site? But they update weekly from PGS. So whatever you put on there during the week, so your statement receiver can change that, and then you can it will automatically update.
And it says, is there a word limit? I'm not sure. Does anybody know that one?
I've not encountered one.
No, I'm not sure. I'll check on that, but I don't think there is.
It might stop you from putting book length entries on there, but I've seen some pretty substantial entries on a church near you.
It's just what you want people to see. It's the first thing that they're going to see. So when they go onto your page, that's the first thing. So if you've got reams and reams of information, they might get a bit bored reading it. Yeah. So you want to put the basics there. So you don't want to make it too long either. Yeah. And there is a PGS question. So, and the PGS question is this: can you suggest anything about how to motivate people to move from standing order to PGS? So I think I had about 6 advantages of PGS, and then a treasurer the other day said he'd written an article with 10. So, so can you think of a few?
Yeah, so there's a lot of advantages to PGS, and I think one of the main things is for your treasurer or your administrator. The PGS is so much easier to administer. Everything's done centrally and automatically for you, so the treasurer has to do very little. The gift aid is also all done automatically, so that's really positive. Another good thing with PGS is that there's an option. It's not essential, but people can choose to increase their gift annually with inflation. You often find in churches that somebody will faithfully give their £10 every week or every month, but they'll do that forever and it won't be increased. But if they're given that option to automatically increase with inflation, which most people are happy to do, that gift will increase automatically year on year, and that's a really positive thing as well. Anyone else got anything to add there?
I think it's also, one of the great things about PGS rather is that there is 3 ways of doing it now. So people can do it over the phone, they can ring up a number and, to set it up like that. They can do it online, and they can also do a physical paper form. And so I think it's really nice to have one platform that has 3 ways of doing it, rather than an old standing order. And I guess that might work more for new signups, but helping explain to people that centralizing it all in one place reduces the paper burden for treasurers. I think that human element of it will encourage people to move over.
And it's a very important thing to have, as you're saying, these online platforms to enable people to give online without the paper forms. And the latest figure, we just had some figures through today, so hot off the press, that 30% of the sign-ups for PGS in the Diocese of Truro were done through online, an online sign-up for PGS. So it is important to have that facility available and to encourage people in it. So I don't know if there are any more questions with the, you've all been bamboozled by the science of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and really, if you've got any more questions, you've got a couple more minutes, we can take those now, or any other subject you want, just throw at us now, we're here. But you can go home and reflect on this, and we'll send you the slides afterwards as well.
I think one thing to say from me is that, all these different websites can seem really intimidating, but actually, if you sort of just sit down with someone and have a look through them, they're not as, once you're actually using them, they're not as intimidating as they seem. And, all 3 of us would be very happy to, meet up with people and just have a look at Facebook, have a look at how other people are using it, and seeing how we can do something similar.
That's great. Thank you, Danny. Have you got any closing words, Christine?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say, as I said before, really important, if you've setting up different ways for people to give, the communication is key. It's really important to get the word out there, not just to set up your PGS, set up your online giving, all these different things, and then wait for people to give. Communication is really important. So getting your message out via Facebook, via Twitter, via your website, via a church near you, or in the traditional ways that we did last time, via your posters and your letters. It's really important to get that communication out and get the message of what your church is trying to do out, and then people will use those methods of giving and will be inspired to give.
That's great. And as always, if you want any encouragement, or you want someone to look over what you're looking at, not in a critical way, but in a constructive way, then please do get in touch. That's exactly what we're here for. So if there's been no more questions, I shall stop the recording now and close down the session in a few minutes. So I wish you all a good night, and thank you very much for being with us this evening.